Hello and welcome to another episode of Come Back Stronger, where we bring you stories mostly from North Florida of people who have overcome adversity, have faced their challenges and come back even stronger than ever. And today we are super excited to bring to you the story of Bob Lotane. I am here, Jimmy Fasig, with my law partner Carrie Roan, and Carrie had the pleasure and privilege of interviewing Mr. Lotane, and this man has a story of resilience and persistence like you have never seen. I am so excited for you to meet him. Carrie, what did you think about Bob Lotane?
You know, Jimmy, I've known Bob for years, and Bob has been through a couple different types of tragedies, and he just keeps bouncing back and keeps getting better and better and better and doing more and serving the community more. There's just nothing that stops him. Yeah. No tragedy can stop this guy.
So what I notice about a lot of the comeback stories that come on here is that basically the setbacks that we endure in life is often a setup for a huge comeback.
That's right.
And so in Bob's case, he was already a pillar of the community before he lost his wife, and then he ended up suffering from the West Nile virus, which left him basically paralyzed from the neck down. He is now been rehabilitating himself, so he's basically paralyzed from the waist down. But he has gone through so much, but in going through so much that he's been through, he has use that as an inspiration to give back even more to the community.
That's right.
And that's what it's all about. I love a story where somebody goes through tragedy, learns lessons, and is compelled and inspired to give back because of what they've been through. So that's the story of Bob Lotane.
Well, and here's a man, Jimmy, who can't even get out of bed.
Yeah.
Without help.
He needs help
and yet
every day.
he's, and he's of the retirement age. So he's officially retired. I don't want to give too much away, and yet he's the busiest retired man you'll ever meet because of everything he's doing in the community, and he keeps pushing himself to do more. And yet I go back to the point that he just can't even get out of bed.
Yeah, yeah.
Could you imagine?
It's a story of somebody that is inspirational to other people who are going through challenges, because you can look at Bob and say, wow, if he can get up every day and be on the board of the Red Cross, to be on the board of Goodwood Museum, to be on the board of, what was it, Refuge House, where he's making a big impact on women who've been abused. So this guy's incredible. We're gonna go to the first part of the interview with Bob Lotane right now. Welcome back to Come Back Stronger, where we're about to hear the interview of Mr. Bob Lotane.
Bob, I am so happy that you're here with us. Bob Lotane is somebody that is well known in the community, but I'm really happy to have you on our show. So thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here. Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit first about your wife, Robin. I knew Robin because I've been practicing law in Tallahassee for about 22 years, and I know Robin was a lawyer. Tell me a little bit about how long you and Robin were married, and ultimately what happened with Robin.
Not long enough married, certainly. Lost her in 2010. She was diagnosed 15 months before she passed with stage 4 lymphoma, which bad. It was throughout her system, and it had gone into her femur bone, believe it or not. Despite that, they gave her pretty good odds. It was like a 65% chance, but it also has a 35% chance that you won't make it. And so after a long, involved fight, lots of chemo and stem cell transplants and everything, she didn't make it. She was just too weak. They had actually found that her sister could have done a donor thing with her, but she was too weak to do it.
No.
So I lost her. It was worst thing in my life. I loved Robin to death.
Everybody did.
Yeah, she was a special person.
Like I told you today, it's been since, I think you said 2010, and I still remember Robin.
Yeah, she was a special person. So, losing her was, devastating, but had to move on, and I am remarried now to Alyssa, which a lot of people know. Struck gold twice in my life, which I think I'm luckier than anybody.
That's awesome.
So I'm happy now, but definitely miss her every day.
Of course. Yeah, of course. And then after you lost Robin, what were you doing for work at the time when Robin passed away?
I've been involved in public relations on a political, as they say, the downtown crowd, the process. I was in the process, more or less, in a variety of things. I did work for the state for years. I was communications director at the Department of Insurance, and I also worked at the Capitol doing political stuff up there for the CFO.
Well, obviously you're here in a wheelchair, but you haven't been in a wheelchair your whole life.
No.
That happened in 2014. So tell us a little bit about what happened to cause you to be in a wheelchair.
Yeah, I mean, I was the opposite. I was running a marathon a year, and I was in the gym 5 or 6 days a week, and I got bit by a mosquito in what they figure was our backyard, probably, and I got West Nile virus, which is not a sentence for this necessarily all the time. A lot of people will get it and they'll have just a flu or something.
Yeah.
They might even not, they'll think it's the flu and it was that. But there are cases that can end up like I was. So when it happened, they had no idea what was going on. After 4 days at TMH, they flew me down to Shands and they weren't sure what was going on.
You had encephalitis, didn't you?
No, it didn't get to that point.
Okay.
They were worried because it was moving on the X-ray things. There was something snaking up my spine, moving up, and they figured it may not stop until it got into my brain.
Wow.
They told my wife, you might want to get your affairs in order and those types of things. They said this might not end well, and they finally just found it was West Nile virus. Took 10 days to get the test back. And there's really nothing we could do. And I also had transverse myelitis, which basically wipes out your nervous system. Once your nervous system is wiped out, your muscular system goes. So I was basically just, everything was kind of sucked out of my body, but I lived.
All from one mosquito.
From mosquito bite,
Gosh,
yeah.
and you just think you hear about West Nile on the news, and you don't think it's going to happen in your community or to somebody like Bob Lotane, somebody that everybody knows, and it's just terrible.
Yeah, had it been somebody at the time, I was very strong, but if it was somebody with a compromised immune system, this wouldn't have been that unusual. But the condition I was in, the doctor said, you can't even do that math.
Yeah.
It's just dumb luck, or bad luck.
Crazy.
Yeah.
What has your recovery from West Nile been like?
It's still continuing. I just started working with a trainer. I've been doing a lot of work, a lot of personal training and stuff, and then I got to and I do a lot of
PT, OT?
PT, thank you. PT and OT at TMH.
Okay.
I've been doing it with them for years. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
And all, but then when I was about to work with a trainer again, the pandemic hit, and with a compromised immune system. So now I'm working with a trainer again. So that's getting me in better shape and all. But
That's good.
but I had to redo my life. I went back to work. It was very difficult. I had to learn to use voice recognition software and do things differently. My hands don't type like they used to, but I get by. But I was able to start my career again and begin making money. And I'm kind of to the point now where I'm retired. I'm not retired in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
I'm not doing anything that makes any money, but I got lots of going on.
You're the busiest retired man I know.
And yeah.
So let me ask you a couple personal questions, if you don't mind. I imagine when, here you were running marathons, working full time, you just, gone through the devastating loss of Robin and kind of coming back from that, and you were struck down pretty hard by a bug. So you must have gone through some pretty dark emotional times.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What was that like?
When I was at Shands and when it was becoming, evident that my life is going to be dramatically different, how much they said you won't know for a year or more how bad this is or good this is going to end up being. There's some people who recover totally, and then there's some people who they said you may never get. I mean, when I was laying down there, I could basically move my head side to side. That was it.
Wow.
There was nothing. When I was finally in rehab up in Atlanta, I mean, one day I looked down and I was able to do this with my thumb. I'll do this for the camera.
Jeez.
And when I showed that to Alyssa, she broke into tears. So that's how bad I was.
Yeah.
So where I am now is a lot from there. And I'll go back to the Robin thing. I think having watched what Robin went through and having it end so poorly, that really the one thing I always thought was, as bad as this is, I'd she'd gladly have traded places with me.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of really bolstered me. And I was still depressed and all. I had a doctor down there. She was an Indian woman. She was very straightforward. And one day she was in there doing some stuff, and I was just staring aimlessly at the TV, and I was pretty down. And she looked at me and she said, there's a couple of ways you can deal with this. She says you can stare at the TV, get depressed, get bed sores, and your life is just going to trail off, or you can attack it. And at that very moment, I said, it's time to get to work.
Nice.
And I started calling people in. I started demanding physical therapy, and everybody's going like, calm down. I'm like, and I found a place I wanted to go for rehab, and I just said, it's time to get my life together. It's going to be different, but we're just going to have to do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think I'm friends with a lot of athletes, and I think a lot of people would look at you and say, I could never live my life like that. I would rather just not be here.
I would have thought that myself.
Right. But you have a full life now.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I've got a good life. It's, like I said, having seen what Robin went through helped me out. The other thing, too, is my doctor here, Dr. Placilla, who's retired now, but he had worked with me for years, and he was getting all the reports while I was going through this, and he was aware that how much I worked out, and he used to say, I wish I could have 800 patients like you.
Oh my gosh.
And he said he would get those reports and look at me, and he would say, thank God he's in such good shape, because he'd be dead right now.
Wow.
So there's that. So because I was like, I wasted all those years trying to keep myself in shape or getting myself in shape, but that probably kept me alive.
Probably. Yeah. Thank God you did.
Yeah.
Well, when we come back from the break, I want to talk about what you're doing now and all the ways you're giving back to the community now. So I can't wait to do that.
Sounds good.
Wow, we're talking about a man who is running marathons. He's in super good shape, gets bit by a mosquito.
One bug in his
Get
backyard.
bit by a mosquito, becomes paralyzed, and yet he says, I'm luckier than anybody.
Yeah.
Right? That is a positive attitude, and that's the kind of positive attitude that has propelled him forward. What did you think? What was your big takeaway?
My big takeaway was when he said he was just going to attack life. He made the decision, here he's in a rehab bed. I think he was in Atlanta or something. He could barely move his thumb, and they were celebrating moving his thumb. And then the physical therapist said, you have a choice. You can either lay here and do nothing, or you can attack your life. And he made the decision to attack his life, and I love that.
He said it's time to get to work.
Right, exactly.
And he got to work. And he demanded therapy. He worked really hard to gain the use of his upper body, and now he's going to work every day to help other people. What a good story. Well, there's more to the story. We can't wait for you to hear the second part. We're going to go to a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to hear the second part of Bob Lotane's interview. Welcome back to Come Back Stronger, where we're hearing the interview of Bob Lotane. Bob Lotane was a marathon runner, super good shape. He got bit by a mosquito and suffered from the West Nile virus that left him paralyzed. And so we heard the first part of the story. Now the second part of the story is coming right up.
Bob, before we get to what you're doing now, I just want to ask you one more question about being in a wheelchair. What are some of the challenges you currently face? As positive as you are and as successful and motivated and ambitious as you are, what are some of the current challenges that you have, and how do you overcome those challenges now?
Getting out of bed's a challenge. I have to have help. I don't look at them as challenges. I just, you get through, you find a way to get through them. They're challenges, and then you learn to get through them, and you got to learn. The one thing you learn, and they taught us this at rehab, is you can't be afraid to ask people for help.
Okay.
And when you're in this condition, a lot of people, especially younger people, you can tell they're nervous around. They don't know what to do, and if you just let people know that you need help, they're like, oh, thank God, I can help you. Yes, oh good. Now I know what to do, and all. So if I do have challenges, people get you through it. The world's a good place if you give them a chance. And this is a great town. This is why I ended up staying here.
Yeah.
This town got me through Robin's thing. They've gotten me through this thing, so there's a lot of that.
Well, and you're very loyal to Tallahassee. You ran for mayor, and you were on the county or city commission?
I actually ran for city commission.
Okay.
Originally it was mayor, but it ended up being city commission.
Okay, all right. And then what else have you been doing?
I spent a lot of time nonprofits. I mean, I was with the Red Cross for 11 years as a board member, and I'm still very involved with them. They have the Bob Lotane Hurricane Run, which was named for Robin because she came up with the idea. It was her baby. It's been one of our biggest fundraisers over the years. So, over the years, I've raised a lot of money for local charities and done a lot of work with them. Now I'm still working with Red Cross, even though I'm not officially on the board. I'm on the board at Refuge House, which is a busy charity. We've been busy with golf tournaments and this and that. And I'm also.
And would you mind? I didn't mean to interrupt you, but would you mind telling our viewership what Refuge House is and what it does for women in the community?
Refuge House. We represent 8 counties in the Big Bend region, and we have shelters, primarily for battered women, but any families going through bad things, we shelter them. We work with the local courts to make sure that they're taken care of and that they have somebody helping them through the process. Basically, just generally women and children going through bad experiences that need a place to go. We provide that.
The
It's a
Refuge House
great
is
charity.
wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, when I was asked by Becky Sowers, who's kind of a local golf legend, she was on the board, and she asked me when we were sitting at Mimi's table one night, and she said, "Would you consider being on the board?" And I said, "That was one of Robin's favorite charities. I'd love to."
Yeah.
And she couldn't believe it. But and when I went home and told Alyssa, she got teary-eyed. I mean, that's the effect Refuge has on people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Refuge House has on people.
We give a lot to Refuge House as well and work with them a lot on things. And it's just, there's no better feeling than in fact, I had a client one time who her entire settlement she took and gave to the Refuge House because of all the help that they had provided her over the years, sheltering her from an abusive husband. And it's just
We just had a woman, Earlene Head, I think is her name. She left her entire estate, her house.
Wow.
And there was other things too to it because of she had been battered, and she knew the work that we did.
It's an amazing, amazing place.
Yeah.
So anybody that needs help with the Refuge House,
Yep.
I encourage them to reach out to Bob
Go to the
Lotane
website, the number's there. We will, it's great. I love it.
What other boards are you on, and how else are you giving back?
I'm also on Goodwood Museum and Gardens. That's been a challenge getting that place through the pandemic. But if people, it's over on Miccosukee Road, great local place. That a lot of history there, and it's a very expensive thing to keep all that up. But we do that. We're kind of charged with that, and it's also a place where people go for weddings and functions and things like that. So that keeps me busy also. Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
we also have Our Tallahassee, which is a local news platform that we started up just to have another group of people out there looking after things. So.
Another thing to do while you're retired?
Yes, exactly.
So let's talk about that. What kind of news organization is it, and where can you find it?
Our Tallahassee, we're Facebook, we're Twitter, and we have a website.
Okay.
So, we cover things from a little different perspective, and we are big fans of the Democrat, always have been, but nowadays news organizations are going through such budget crunches. I mean, they're working on skin-tight news budgets, and I think that with the recent controversies in the town, a little bit of corruption here and there. I think we've learned that having more people keep an eye on what's going on in our government than less is probably better. So we're not making any money at this. We don't sell advertising. We just feel like we have a perspective and we have some experience in government. So we're just trying to keep an eye on things.
Get the facts out there.
Get the facts out there and let people know what's going on. Yeah.
So what is in the future for you, Bob? Because I don't think you're ever going to just rest.
Yeah.
What is in the future for you physically? Like, where do you see yourself going from a physical perspective? Do you think you'll be out of the wheelchair at any point? Okay.
Yeah. With my condition, they generally said within a year to a year and a half. Obviously, my spine was broke. It's the same thing as if I dove in the shallow end of a pool and fractured my spine. It might as well have been that, and I'm about a C7.
Okay.
So the odds that this would ever get markedly better are pretty much impossible.
Okay.
what I can do is I'm building muscle back. I mean, I lost pretty much my entire muscular system. So I'm still working to build the muscle back, and it's having an effect. I was at a Christmas party the other night, and a guy I hadn't seen in a while came up, and he's like, "You look fantastic." And I go, "Well, I thought it was just," he goes, "No, you really do." He goes, "You're sitting up differently." And I just started working with this trainer, as I told you before, who I hadn't been able to do because of the pandemic. So it's making a difference. So even though I'm not going to walk again, that doesn't mean I can't improve my physicality. And at my age, 63, you're getting older, so you got to keep yourself in shape. So I'm looking at, physically getting better, mentally trying to stay there, and still trying to do things for the city. I'd like to leave the world in a better place than I left it. It's little things, but, and there's a lot of people out there that are going through a lot of worse things than I am, that don't have resources. So the fact that I do, I try to give back a little bit.
You've got such a great perspective on your own life. I think a lot of people would be in a wheelchair, physically, disabled in some way, and just kind of give up.
They do.
And you've never done that, and I love that.
Well, I was, I needed that jolt that I told you about. But a lot of people do go through things. It could be a car accident, and all of a sudden your life has changed from 10 minutes before, and they don't always do that well. And a lot of people don't have resources. There's a lot of stuff that you guys push, but it's true. I mean, I was in therapy, and I saw a lot of people who were in the same place as I was. Some were a lot younger than me, and some of them, they didn't have any resources. Their families had no money, and so there's so that I can understand where people could give up because they just don't have anywhere to turn. So I've had some luck, in with my career and everything. So it helps. It helps.
But I think your mentality helps too.
Oh yeah.
You've got that never give up, never quit, never stop mentality, and I just think that's so admirable.
I'm lucky to have it, I guess.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today and for being on the show. It's been an honor.
Glad to do it. Thank you for having me.
Wow, Carrie, I tell you what, Bob Lotane is a perfect example of the whole theory behind Come Back Stronger, which is that every injury, every obstacle, every setback is life's way of guiding us to become a higher and better version of ourselves so that we can contribute the most to giving back to the community. And that's exactly what Bob Lotane has done. I mean, how many people would have just sat back and said, I give up and watch TV all day?
It'd be really easy when you're in a wheelchair like that.
100%, but he didn't do that.
No.
He came back and he was already helping the Red Cross, but then he gets on the board of the Refuge House, he gets on the board of the Goodwood Museum, he starts a news organization.
Right.
This is a guy that's doing it from a wheelchair, and he needs help getting out of bed every day.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
He can't stop and he won't stop. That's
Can't
for sure.
stop, won't
and he
stop.
doesn't even look at them as challenges.
No, he says, I don't see them as challenges.
Right.
He said, I just feel like it's something you have to get through, and I get through them.
You just have to work through it.
Good stuff. So we're going to go to a commercial break, and we're going to come back and talk about the takeaways. Welcome back to Come Back Stronger, where we just heard the second part of the interview with Bob Lotane, a man who is a pillar of the community who got struck down by the West Nile virus, ended up being paralyzed, and despite his paralysis, despite being in a wheelchair, he has come back even stronger and has really become a force to be reckoned with in this community.
Yeah.
What was your biggest takeaway for Bob's story?
Jimmy, I have two takeaways.
Okay.
I loved when he said, you just need to ask for help. Just rely on people. And we hear that in so many of the stories where people rely on their support systems, but he obviously has to ask for help.
Yeah,
and
he can't even get out of bed in the morning without
and there's
help.
no shame in that game.
Right.
Ask for help. Lean
Yeah.
on your family, your friends, your community, your coworkers. And then my second takeaway is to offer help. He said that people will look at him and they don't know what to do.
Yes.
And then he tells them how he can be helped, and people are so eager to help them. And I love that.
I love it too, and I love that he even mentioned this, that there are so many people in our community who are willing to help.
Yeah.
And if you're going through challenges, reach out, because people want to help. They want to feel important. They want to feel like they're making a positive impact on the community, and so people are out there. So, wow, what a great story. We love having you here with the Come Back Stronger, and We want to invite you back next week because we're going to come back with even greater comeback stories every week. And if you have a comeback story or you know someone, let us know about it. Thank you so much. And you know what the insurance company offered him? $5,000.
Really?
He's completely blind, and they offer him $5,000. Ask him to sign a release.
To a lot of people, especially when they're hurting and when they're down and when they're vulnerable, $5,000 is a life-changing amount of money.
Yeah.
And they're not looking at the value of what has been lost. They're not looking at what it would take to make that person whole, which is our job.
Yeah.
That's our job. Their job isn't. Their job is to save the insurance company money.
Right.
And they look at this person and they go, I bet $5,000 would get your full attention. And they come in and they dangle it with a settlement release, and then once you sign it, you're done. You can't come back to us and ask us to wave a magic wand and make that go away. That can't go away.
My client didn't accept the $5,000. We took him all the way to trial. We got a $5 million verdict.